Yeah, let's progress right on to our Monday Night Raw review. And we open up out of the box with Roman Reigns. Mixed reaction as he comes to the crowd.
Mixed? No. I'm going to call you out right there. Not a mixed reaction. He got a massive pop.
Massive pop, but then it seemed like seconds later there were boos that came in. So again, that dichotomy that we hit on last week.
You know what, though? To me, when you say mixed reaction, I'm thinking like the John Cena reaction, where half the crowd hates him and half the crowd loves him. This was like 90% love, 10% really loud haters.
I will give you that. And, he comes out. We are in Columbus, Ohio tonight, which was pretty much an okay crowd. He said, I stood here this time last week as the Royal Rumble winner with a guaranteed WrestleMania main event spot. And, he says that means he would have, fought Brock Lesnar and defeated him to become the WWE World Heavyweight Champion. But then he says the Authority made it clear that he's not the one they want in that spot.
Which is hilarious because that implies that Daniel Bryan is.
Yeah, really, considering that he is the opposition, right? It would have made more sense then for Rollins to go over and be in this spot headed to Fastlane. Reigns says to prove himself he's going to beat Bryan at Fastlane, and then he's going to defeat Brock Lesnar at WrestleMania and become the champion. Reigns says if you get in his way, he's got a spear with your name on it. I like the work here from Reigns. I think he's starting to hit his stride again, just being that badass and not going that corny route.
Yeah, but of course he did say Breet, which everyone jumped on and instantly just came in their pants because Roman Reigns botched a word, and so.
Because they are looking for any way to pick this man apart and make him seem unfit for a WrestleMania spot.
Of course.
Just freaking wonderful.
Right, because of course Daniel Bryan's never messed up a word in a promo. He's perfect.
Yeah, perfect in every way. So, Daniel Bryan's music hits, and
we want to talk about Randy Orton. Randy Orton forgot his lines once.
Yeah, and he even joked about it. He was a good sport about it. God, we miss Randy Orton so much.
Do you remember that segment with him and Sheamus, and they were just circling each other, and Orton said with the mic away from his face, "What's my line?"
Yeah, I do remember that. So see, everybody's gotten off day, and believe me, there have been worse than Roman Reigns. Trust me on that.
Absolutely. Worse than Roman Reigns in the main event.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, hell, here's the way I see it. The Miz main evented at WrestleMania. If The Miz can do it, Roman Reigns can do it.
Yeah, really.
And the crazy thing is, not only did The Miz main event that WrestleMania, he freaking won.
Yeah, he won it. He freaking won it. But Daniel Bryan's music hits, and he comes out, of course, to a pop from that same dynamic. Bryan
it was most of the crowd, I would say. I mean, the crazy thing is, it seems like some of the crowd is actually starting to turn on Bryan.
I've noticed that too.
And it's not a big proportion. It's not a big portion of the crowd, but it's probably about the same percent that boo Reigns. Yeah. I mean, obviously it's different people, but it's about the same percent of people.
Yeah, because I did hear some no chants, and I do feel like I hear for the second.
Well, there was a dude in the front row that was swinging his arms back and forth, chanting, "No, no, no."
Yeah, it's crazy because I even told you, as the pre-show was concluding tonight, I was wondering what kind of reaction Bryan would get. And I'm not surprised by this by any means. By that I mean the overwhelmingly positive reaction. But it is interesting to hear that little bit of dissension from the crowd, just like Reigns. So Bryan says he didn't come to fight. He came to thank Reigns for taking out Big Show during the main event last week. That whole spot that made me question why was Big Show even running towards him to begin with. What did he think was going to happen? So Bryan brings up their match at Fastlane. And then, you know what, I gotta say, and I'll admit, everybody knows I'm a sucker for technical wrestling and all that stuff. Those are my favorite types of wrestlers. But, of course, Bryan would go this route because he says, Reigns, you're definitely bigger than me. You're stronger than me. In the looks department, we about tie. But
I love that. I'd say we're about even. It was like, oh, Bryan, you're adorable for thinking you're more adorable than you really are.
Yeah, Bryan definitely got a chuckle out of me there. But then, of course, he invokes the W word. He says, but everyone knows I'm a better wrestler than you. As if you couldn't, drum up the fervor anymore from the people that are, in your camp.
You know what the hilarious thing is, too?
What's that?
Well, by what definition does he mean wrestler?
Well, I think whatever definition, the internet fans and people on Reddit that have just been trying to tear Reigns down will ascribe to it. And that's the crazy part.
Yeah, that's the funny thing to me is when somebody says they're a better wrestler than somebody else, there are only really two quantifiable ways to measure that, and that's via actual amateur wrestling skills, of which I'm guessing Bryan has little to none.
Right.
And even if he did, he would be in so much lower of a weight class than Reigns that they would never actually wrestle, and if they would, Reigns would destroy him.
Right.
Or B, crowd reaction. And in that specific case, I think that it's actually a lot closer than most Bryan marks would want you to believe.
I would agree with that. I feel like Reigns does have a legitimate fan base, the same way Bryan does. And, you and I know we're Daniel Bryan fans, but
John,
yeah.
I like Daniel Bryan, and therefore a lot more people like Daniel Bryan than Roman Reigns.
That seems to be,
QED.
QED. But yeah, I mean, that just seems to be the general consensus, at least on the Bryan side. But I mean, how WrestleMania will shake out is anybody's guess still. Triple H's music hits, and I love the reaction from the chat that I was a part of, because they're like, 20-minute promo incoming, and I was dreading it too. I'm like, oh my god, here we go. We almost ended this segment and his music had to hit. And Triple H comes out with Stephanie, Kane, and Big Show. They bring up Fastlane, and Triple H, addresses Sting. He says, I'm giving Sting till the end of the night tonight to give me an answer on whether or not he's going to face me. So, that's a thing.
You know what's hilarious?
What's that?
They show up, and they're just like, oh, is there something going on in the ring? We'll talk about that later. We got stuff that we got to get out.
I know, right? It's just for people that hate Triple H.
Just hold your horses, Bryan and Reigns. We'll get to you in a minute. We have to plug things.
Because God is speaking. I can't even. Oh, man, Triple H. But then he finally does look towards the ring, and he does. Ashton recognize that, yes.
Well, I'm glad you guys stuck around.
Because now I get to pull a Teddy Long and make a tag match, players.
Holla, holla.
Yeah, it's going to be Bryan, Reigns, Kane, and Big Show, which, as you all know, my reaction to it, I was like, of course it is. Mm-hmm. So then we get our tag match, and yeah, I mean, what is there really to say? Bryan, I think, really was pummeled down by the Authority, Kane, and Big Show for most of the match. There was actually one cool spot, I will admit, where he tried diving over the ropes, and both Kane and Big Show caught him, and then they threw him against the ropes, and, that was kind of the turn of the tide, so to speak. The important thing to note in this match, though, was the miscue between Bryan and Reigns, because Bryan accidentally drop-kicked Reigns in the corner, and so they kind of had an implosion, and, and then during all that, just the whole match imploded and ended a DQ, so Daniel Bryan and Roman Reigns win. So, hey, a DQ finish, that's something else that we haven't seen 2,000 times. And then, seeing Daniel Bryan and Roman Reigns have this implosion, Triple H kind of smiles and he says, yeah, you guys work great together. In fact, so great, I'm going to give you another opportunity to do it here tonight in a 5-on-2 handicap match. And he lists off that Daniel Bryan and Roman Reigns will be taking on Big Show, Kane, J&J Security. And then what kind of made me scratch my head was he said, and this man, as if we didn't know who it was going to be. And, of course, it was Seth Rollins. But
before we move on, I just want to point out that Daniel Bryan had a Katie Vick reference that was amazing.
He did. That's right. He did. Yeah. Because Stephanie and Triple H were scolding Bryan and Reigns, and they both kind of retorted. And when Stephanie was kind of chastising Bryan about putting Kane in a casket, Bryan said, well, to be fair, it was a casket match, and considering the things that your husband has done in caskets, I thought you guys would have appreciated it. Ooh, all the ice for that burn.
I know, right? It was so good. And hey, let's not undersell Reigns. He had a pretty sweet moment here too, because Steph said something about how he speared the Big Show out of jealousy, and he was like, no, I speared him because I could.
I love Stephanie's reaction though, because then she's like, well, that
makes it even worse.
Yeah, it makes it even worse. Oh, what a human resources representative.
I love it. That was so good. See, guys, like, we aren't huge Roman Reigns fans, but we're at least willing to acknowledge when he does something cool, and that was freaking cool.
this is the Roman Reigns that I can really sink my teeth into on the road to WrestleMania.
Yeah.
I love, be a bit cocky, be a bit more, you've got all the tools and just the idea. No, I did it because I could. You're damn right you could, and you
Yeah.
did. Amazing. And he's internet famous now because those GIFs. But then, I guess Big Show and Kane aren't the only ones pulling double duty because Seth Rollins, and see, that was another thing that kind of confused me.
I know, right? Like, you have so many guys at your disposal, and yet and here's the really crappy thing. This week is an NXT live special week, and they only used commercials and, like, audible plugs to try and sell that. Like, the last two, we've had actual matches involving NXT performers on Raw. And no, they would rather give us 3 matches involving the same 7 people.
Yeah, I mean, Ashton, no offense to either competitor here, but I'll just go ahead and say about our next segment of Seth Rollins versus Ryback, this is entirely unnecessary. You could have taken this time and done like an NXT exhibition type matchup to promote the live special this
right, and the
Wednesday.
worst part is it was the exact same thing as the last match. It was the same finish and everything. They just beat down Ryback, and Ryback wins by DQ, but who gives a crap?
I mean, yeah, you pretty much did the review for me. Like, I don't even have to go point for point because it's really just a blurb. They got some offense and some back and forth, but it quickly broke down.
Yeah, because eventually Ryback was, I believe, going for a spine buster, and Rollins kind of wiggled his way out of it, but then Ryback just kind of adjusted it into what would have been a shell shock, and then J&J Security attacked, and it was over. DQ finish.
Exactly. So Ryback gets the DQ win, and I'm just left here thinking we have an NXT special this Wednesday with a card that looks so impressive, and I cannot wait for you and I to do preview predictions tomorrow night on it, that you're going to blow that opportunity to do Ryback versus Seth Rollins. For what purpose? It's like...
Yeah. Like, we could have, even if they didn't feel like putting Kevin Owens on Raw yet, we could have still had Charlotte and Bayley versus Becky Lynch and Sasha Banks, because the last time Charlotte was on Raw, she looked like a friggin' joke, so maybe have her pin Becky Lynch in this match to assert that she is really, really good and that she doesn't suck like what the casual Raw viewer probably thinks at this point.
Or you know what else they could have done too? Because keep in mind, Ryback versus Seth Rollins, as you and I have already noted, didn't get a lot of time anyway. And again, we've been craving that WWE just does something different. I love Michael Cole's sit-down interviews with people. What if he did one with, like, Sami Zayn or Kevin Owens or something? You know, it's just something to promote the live special, and instead we get, as you said, a brief matchup like this with the exact same finish as the opening contest. Makes no sense to me.
Yep. I mean, shoot, if they wanted to do even like an exhibition-style match, they could have done something like Neville and Itami versus Balor and Zayn.
Absolutely. You know, just so many routes they could have gone with this. But anyway.
Yeah, like there are so many things that they could have done. And all you need, honestly, is like 5 to 7 minutes. It's not, you could have literally just taken this match, this Seth Rollins versus Ryback match, decided to just not do it at all, since Ryback ended up showing up later in the night, and Seth Rollins worked another match later in the night, which, that's another thing. Why is Seth Rollins working double duty when he's your golden boy? Wouldn't you want to protect him?
Actually, you know what? Thank you for reminding me what my other nitpick would have been. Why are you even putting him in a match against Ryback? And I can understand the 5-on-2 because he has the man advantage.
Right.
But why would you put him in a 1-on-1 situation against a guy that's been known to destroy people?
Well, that's another thing. That's the big thing right there, is that Ryback is known to destroy people. So, hey, since we're changing things up, why not do Rollins versus Ziggler again if you have to put Rollins in a match at all? And then Ryback versus Bray Wyatt, which we've never seen before.
Oh, that'd be so good. But more importantly, I mean, are we surprised? Let's remember how the Authority treated Randy Orton that made us want to rip their hair out every week.
Yeah, I know.
So at least
literally one of the first things that ever got me to really cheer for Randy Orton. And to this day, it's actually been so effective that I have somehow managed to find myself becoming a borderline full-fledged Randy Orton mark.
It's a beautiful thing, isn't it? But, I mean, I find it ironic that the only thing that, you know, this kind of writing and stuff seems to be consistent about is the one thing that would always infuriate us, and that's the heel faction just kind of leaving their own to fend for themselves. That's great.